Hi, I'm Ksenia, and I wanted to talk today about the fallout from the eclipses that we had in July and August this year. But probably, my approach is going to be far more general. We're going to be looking at the effect of eclipses in general. But I was prompted to do this video because the fallout for me after the July eclipses has been pretty intense, and I know a lot of my clients have been feeling the same thing, particularly for people who had personal planets such as the sun, natally in their chart, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, even Jupiter and Saturn, but mostly up to sort of Mars, having any of those planets falling in the sign of Leo here, down here where the eclipse occurred. This is the chart of the July eclipse. You can see there's the north node there with the sun in Leo, and opposing it is the moon with the south node and Mars all together in Aquarius. So anyone with natal planets in Aquarius at the early degrees or Leo at the early degrees would be really feeling the fallout from the eclipse period. Similarly, anyone with planets in the early degrees of Taurus here, where Uranus is, because Uranus is making a square, which is a 90-degree angle to both the sun and the moon. So early degrees of Taurus and also early degrees of Scorpio, which would have also squared. And remember, a square is a tenseness, there's a friction there in our lives brought about by that. Usually the nature of a square is to bring about manifestation through sort of friction and obstacles. So there can be a lot of manifestation when we have squares in the chart, but it comes with a bit of pain and hard work and frustration usually. But certainly in the chart of the eclipse on July 27th, in most of the parts of the world, in July 28th in Australia, we would have been really feeling this strongly if we had, like I described, planets in early degrees here, 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 and here. So basically, when we have an eclipse such as this one, which was a really intense one because of the combination of Mars involved and then the square from Uranus as well, causing a lot of unexpected energy, and Mars causing a lot of frustration and anger, intense energy. Depending on what house it is that the particular eclipse took place, will show you what the area is that we're trying to work with here, or the eclipse is trying to work with in your chart. So for me, Leo happens to be my 6th house, and so that was the area that got triggered for me, and it was about work and it was about jobs, and so that was a really difficult time for me in the 2-week period after, actually the 1-week period after the July eclipse. A lot of upheaval, a lot of things taken away, a lot of things removed, but that happens in order to make room for new things to come in. But depending on where Leo falls in your chart, or Aquarius, will depend on what was triggered for you. For me, like Aquarius is my 12th house. It's a very karmic. So what occurred for me was job issues with my day job, and it was a very karmic thing. It was a finalization of a karmic energy that needed to be laid to rest this lifetime. Thank goodness. So I won't go into too much of it more than that, but that's the nature of how eclipses work. In the houses that they fall, that's the area of life that they're wanting to deal with, they're wanting to address, they're wanting you to really up level from. So a bit about eclipses. They are dramatic tools that cause us to address life and the areas that in our lives that need to change, even if we're unaware, even if we're thinking everything's going great, everything's running really well. The eclipses want us to up level. They want us to move to better ground, to higher places, and so they often do that in really sudden, unexpected ways. Eclipses have the nature of Uranus, actually. So when we had Uranus squaring this recent eclipse in July, double whammy eclipse, double whammy, unexpected change, unexpected events, out of the blue, suddenly, we didn't see them coming, those sorts of things, very Uranian style energy in this eclipse. Eclipses carry that energy naturally, but when Uranus is involved, like it was this time with a square, it's just made even more so that way. But they tend to uproot us. They tend to take us unawares. This is the nature of eclipses. They cause our life energy to be invigorated and to get moving. And that always happens from a shake-up, you know. That's the biggest life lessons are learnt through pain, unfortunately. And often the eclipses can feel a little bit painful when their manifestations occur. But it's all about up-leveling. They demand us to adjust so that we can grow, can achieve greater consciousness, can move into a new level of being in the area that the eclipse is falling in our chart. So at the most basic level, they are, I'll just describe them, they are the occurrence of a full moon or a new moon on the axis of the north and the south node. So in this case, the July eclipse was happening on the, it was an opposition of the sun and the moon on the nodes. So this happens, roughly 4 times a year, but there are years when this can happen more. 2011, it was a shocker of a year. We had about 6 eclipses occurring in 2011. So a lot of people, especially a lot of my clients and friends, will look back at 2011 and see it as a pivotal year when everything changed for them. I had recently become a single mum, and 2011 was my first year of being a single mum, and my goodness, I really noticed the up-leveling required to move into that realm of life. Eclipses are like that. They cause us to up-level, and 2011 was a really big year of up-leveling because there were so many eclipses that particular year. So just checking my notes. So the north and the south node, they are the points in the sky where the moon crosses the sun's ecliptic plane. So that's the basic astrology of what they are. They're not actually visible points. You won't go out, on a starry night and look up and try and find the north node. It doesn't work like that. They're mathematical points where there's an intersect of both the sun and the moon crossing where it crosses the moon's path, not the moon itself, but the moon's path crosses the ecliptic plane of the sun. It's an intersection of two planes, if you like. And you know what? The eclipses are 3 times as powerful as a full moon. Now, full moons are really powerful for manifestation. They often will bring us a culmination of something that we have planned for or, established 2 weeks before at the new moon. But eclipses are 3 times as powerful as a full moon. So they're supercharged, So because the moon is always involved in an eclipse, it is a manifesting planet. It's one of the most powerful manifesting planets. And because of that, an eclipse will always cause some sort of material manifestation. So that can be, some sort of outer world, third dimensional world event that occurs in our life, rather than anything on a subconscious level. Although the moon's a very psychic planet, in the case of eclipses, it's going to bring us some kind of material manifestation in the houses that it falls in during the eclipse. So as I said, on a standard ordinary year, we get 4 eclipses, and that will be 2 full moons falling in the house where the north and south node are, or 2 new moons falling in the houses where the nodes are as well. And the nodes take 18 to 24 months to move through a sign. So there's this 18 to 24 month period when these eclipses can be generated, and that's why in some years we end up with extra eclipses that we weren't perhaps counting on. Now, if you have personal planets, as I mentioned before, at any of the areas where the nodes are falling on and there's an eclipse happening with the sun and the moon, you're going to have a big year of up-leveling or a big period of growth. So just say you've got a lot of planets in Cancer down here. you can expect that when the nodes change signs, which is going to happen towards the end of this year, 2018, that for the next 18 to 24 months, you're going to get some intensity. If you've got a lot of planets in Cancer, a stellium of 4 or more planets, you're going to have a big year of up-leveling, a big 18-month period of up-leveling as the nodes move through Cancer. Similarly, Capricorn as well. And it's going to be really full on for people with planets in Capricorn, because you've also going to have Saturn and Pluto there at the same time too. So there's going to be a lot of intensity around the coming eclipses for the next 18-month period. So hang on to your hat for that one. But a little bit more about what eclipses are. Once the nodes have finished in a sign, it's going to be 9 years before they're back in that sign again. So once the nodes leave the sign of Leo, it's going to be 9 years before they're back in the sign of Leo. And next time, in 9 years' time, it's going to be reversed. It's going to be the north node up in Aquarius and the south node down in Leo. So there's going to be the influence on those houses again in the chart in 9 years' time, but it's going to be a reversal. And we'll talk a little bit more about the nature of the south node and the north node as we go along and what they bring. So we're going to have a reversed energy. You know, instead of the focus for me being on the 6th house of work and health, it's going to be reversed to be a focus on the 12th house of karma and divine inspiration. So these are the things that will be affected. So if you look back to 9 years ago in your life, when there was last had eclipses in Leo and Aquarius, what was going on? What was happening in your life? What was unfolding? For me, I was in the process of finishing up my marriage. So you can see really big life events occur from eclipses. Now, that's the 9-year cycle when we have that sort of happening, but it's going to be 18 years before we have a repeat with the north node here. It takes 18 years, approximately 18 to 19 years of the north and south node transversing the whole of the horoscope. So it's going to be 18 years before we get this addressed in a similar manner again. So if you've lived long enough, think back to 18 years ago. What was going on then for you? What was unfolding then? Because that would have also been affected by the eclipses as well in a very similar way to now. So what this eclipse in July was a lunar eclipse. Now this is a full moon, is called a lunar eclipse. A full moon with the nodes of the moon is a lunar eclipse. And this is when the earth falls between the sun and the moon. So just we'll say that's the earth. It's between the sun and the moon. So there's a blockage of light that way falling on the earth blocks the sun's light falling on the full moon. So it's not as clear and strong, can be only vaguely seen in the sky when that happens. No sunlight on the moon goes dark. In this case, I don't know if you recall, but it was quite red, that particular eclipse in July. But a lunar eclipse is all about culminations and endings, finishing something, finalizing something, bringing something to a conclusion. That's what occurs when we have a lunar eclipse. Now, 2 weeks later, the moon had moved around to join, I'll just get this off here, to join the sun in the sky, and we had, actually it was sort of about the middle degrees of Leo, on the August the 11th, we had a new moon. And this occurred again in connection with the nodes. And at this time, it was a solar eclipse. So it's a solar eclipse when we have a new moon with the nodes, moon and sun connecting together by conjunction in the sky. And this is when the moon will fall between the sun and the earth, blocking the sun's light. So just blocking the sun's light and causing there to be a solar eclipse. And what's a solar eclipse all about? Well, it's about beginnings. So it's about receiving something in, something coming in that to start a new life, to start a new paradigm, to begin something. So I'll give you an example from my life because it was quite an intense experience for me. When we had the lunar eclipse, there was a loss concerning employment and job. When we had the solar eclipse occur 2 weeks later, in came a new amazing job opportunity that was about up leveling, reaching to higher realms, moving into my destiny, succeeding at a greater level than I had ever imagined I could. And this is often the nature of eclipses. There is a clearing away in order to allow something new to come in. It doesn't always happen so quickly, I might add. It happened within a 2-week period for me, but eclipses can take 3 to 9 months for the energy to play out. They're that potent, they can last for that period of time. So you might not notice anything has happened until, you're 3 months in, or, 6 months down the track, and then it really starts to hit home and you look at all the puzzle pieces and it all falls into place. But I just wanted to point out, solar eclipses are about beginnings, solar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are about endings and culminations. And so that's really what I wanted to establish as we go into a look at generally what do eclipses bring us and how can we best deal with them and the fallout. Well, first of all, they bring big life events, as I've just illustrated. But I met my first husband back in 1998 in the week of an eclipse, and it happened to fall on my ascendant that week. So hello, big eclipse life event change. That's what can happen. So you can meet partners. Partners can come into your life. New people can come into your life. Influences can come into your life who change your life phenomenally. Marriages, divorces can also occur from eclipses as well. For me, in 2010, when I got divorced, I have a lot of planets also in Cancer, and that was what was being triggered in 2010. We'd just gone through the Leo, so it ended my marriage, so to speak. The eclipses brought the end of my marriage, and then divorce came with the eclipses on my planets in Cancer. So lots of intensity. It can bring moving house. It can bring babies, pregnancies, loved ones passing. Recently, my son, which is quite tragic, had a very inspirational teacher of his pass away at school, and this happened exactly a month after the eclipse, and he happened to be born on the 26th of July, which is, of course, meaning he has his son at the degree of the recent July eclipse. So you can see a lot of, this sort of stuff plays out. People pass away. We lose things. Things are let go of with the lunar eclipse, as we described. Endings, culminations, finishings. So that's just an extreme example. It doesn't happen in every case, of course. But I want to just illustrate big life events come out of eclipses. They are what transforms our world, personal, private world, that's for sure. Now, usually we get those big transformations when there's a personal planet involved. So don't freak out if, there's an eclipse falling in, say, your 8th house, which is traditionally the house of death and rebirth. Don't freak out. If you've got no planets there, you've got nothing to worry about, And even if you do, it's not going to necessarily mean death. So please don't freak out. Okay, so we've talked about the fact that they bring big life events, and that can be good and bad. You can, like I said, I met my husband the week of an eclipse on my ascendant. So these great things can come into our lives as a result of the eclipses. Now, they also represent beginnings and endings, obviously. When we have big life events, well, we're starting something new, like a new relationship or having a new baby or moving to a new house or a new job, so big changes that indicate the end of one way of doing things and the beginning of another. Finishing up being single, going to start being married. Finishing up being, footloose and fancy free, going to start having, children. This is the change that is brought about. So it indicates big beginnings and also endings in life. And you'll never be the same again from what these eclipses bring you, especially when they happen on a personal planet. And I use again and again the term up leveling, because that is what is really going on. We are increasing in maturity, increasing in consciousness, increasing in enlightenment. So all of these events, this is what the eclipses want to bring us, is to help us up level. That's the nature of the eclipse, is to help us grow. And it's really the destiny point, the focus of our journey through life is to continue to up level. I often refer in my readings to the North Node being our destiny point, and that's because the North Node is about what is unfolding for us, what is blossoming for us in our lives, what we're rising up into. The South Node is our skills and abilities that we've, I believe in reincarnation, that we have carried with us from past lifetimes. And so we've got natural abilities wherever our South Node falls. We've got a comfort factor wherever our South Node falls. And we can utilize that in our life, but it's not the destiny that we're headed to. We've learnt the lessons, we've got the big thumbs up, and now we're moving into a new destiny, which is seen by our North Node. So the South Node is about emptying out and letting go of, and moving beyond and growing out of. So, you might have the South Node in the 4th house. So home, family, heritage, roots might have been, your security factor, your focus, and something that you really just did naturally. You have a beautiful home. There was a, lovely family life, and that was really important to you. But as you grow on in life, you be headed more to your destiny point, which is about career and worldly achievements instead of home quite so much. So that's just an illustration of the difference between the North and the South Node, and how they actually work together to be about beginnings and endings. So we see finishing up with the South Node and moving into new destiny with the North Node, beginnings and endings there. And there's also quite karmic points as well that connect to past lives and things we need to process and let go of as well. So that's the nature of the North Node in the horoscopes. So it's all about moving forward in life, sometimes shocking or instantaneous or immediate, or sometimes it happens over a period of months. Now, the reason that this eclipse would have been quite challenging for so many people is because of that Uranus involvement, which was quite shocking. Eclipses can be that way anyhow, but when we throw Uranus into the cauldron, we get a full-on sudden shocking upheaval type energy playing out, and that can be the trauma of this particular eclipse that took place in July. Now, it can take another 18 to 24 months for us to process and integrate the lessons that we've learned from the eclipse period and the sign and the house in which it occurs. So it's going to be another, 18 to 24 months for us to really fully sit with whatever the eclipse has brought us. So if it's brought us a new relationship, then allow that new relationship to blossom over the next 18 to 24 months and enjoy it. Don't rush headlong into, we've been going out 3 weeks, let's get married. Enjoy the new relationship and allow it to reach its fullness. Allow it to integrate within you in full capacity over the next 18 to 24 months. That's just an example. As we said, eclipses bring random events, and there are events that are out of our control. So we don't see them coming. We as much as we're aware, there's an eclipse on my sun, I better, watch out. We're not going to see them coming. We're not going to, even if we're observant, like I am an astrologer and I observe whatever's happening, and I did not even see what occurred for me coming. So they are events that you cannot fight, but and random, and that the universe knows you need in order to move to a better place. But they'll usually happen in an unexpected way. So despite these random, sudden, shocking events that the eclipse brings, eclipses have got our back, and they're here to reveal important truths to us. And so this can be, revealing to, oh my God, I actually really hate this job. I'm so bored, or it's really unsatisfying for me, or this marriage sucks, I want out, or I need to take better care of my health because I'm just feeling so horrible lately. I've really got to change the way I do my health routine. So lots of these things, these truths are revealed, and in a biblical phrase, the truth will set us free. And it does through the eclipses, even when we're not aware. We don't realize what's going on, and then suddenly, a couple of weeks later, we're like, oh wow, I'm so glad that happened, I'm so liberated now. Again, the nature of Uranus playing out with liberation and freedom from what is holding us back, what is keeping us trapped, what is keeping us stuck. Now, eclipses, as well as bringing events into our lives, they can also reveal to us the true colors of the people that we interact with in our lives. We might not always like what we see either. We might have an associate or a friend or a boss or somebody who's really, really generous, and we think, oh, they're so lovely, they're so kind and so generous. And then when the eclipse comes, suddenly they're revealed, it's revealed for what it truly is, a form of manipulation, a form of control, a form of power over others, and self-elevation. So that's the kind of thing that can come to light from an eclipse. And so we learn about our family, we learn about our friends, we learn about the people we interact with on a daily level, and suddenly there's light shed on our interactions with others. And it's, like I said, not always pleasant to see those things. And sometimes we can also have things revealed about ourselves that we weren't exactly thrilled about either. Suddenly we see some truth about our own behavior. So eclipses can occur to shed light onto our relationships and our friendships, and our work relationships, but can also shed light into our own behavior as well. And now this is the toughie. Eclipses, whatever they bring into your life, they will be final. So it's like ripping off the Band-Aid. End of that. It's just, out of there, done. And you won't be getting your job back, no matter how much you might want it. You won't be getting the boyfriend back, no matter how much you might want him back. You won't be getting the car back after the accident. That's not going to happen. You won't be. Once the eclipse removes something from your life, ends something, the lunar eclipse, which is about endings, July 27th, once it's removed something from your life, you're not going to get it back again into your life. Now, as I illustrated before with the very sad situation that happened for my son, if an eclipse falls within 5 days of your birthday, you need to guard your health. You really do. And that's a prime example. His teacher, who was quite young, early 50s, died very suddenly, and he had the eclipse fall within 5 days of his birthday. I am born within 5 days of the eclipse myself, so I'm really watching my health this year as well, getting back into the jogging and healthy eating and all that sort of fun stuff. So even though we can't predict what's going to happen because they're about unexpected events, we can pay attention to the omens and the signs around us in our life. Now, if someone, and in the lead up to an eclipse, is acting a little bit off, a little bit suspicious, a little bit, like they're out of character in some way, it's highly likely that the eclipse is going to involve them in some way. So that's probably the only indicator that we can really look for. If someone is, treating you differently, and it's really kind of like sticking out like a sore thumb, then you can almost be sure they're going to be somehow wrapped up in how this eclipse will unfold. Something that is really, really interesting about the nature of eclipses and what they can bring us is that a solar eclipse, we'll start with the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse, which is about obviously the sun and the moon being full, at a full capacity, the feminine energy being at its fullness. When we have a lunar eclipse, it can indicate that some important female person in our lives is about to leave, about to move out of our life. I'm not saying die, but suddenly have nothing to do with us. So it might be a friend, it might be a mother, it might be a boss, it might be a work colleague, it might be a daughter. It could be any female person in your life is about to leave your life in some way. So that could just simply mean, say your daughter suddenly comes to you 2 weeks after the eclipse and says, oh, Mum, I don't want to live in Chicago anymore. I want to move to LA. So she leaves and moves away. So there's not that she's moving out of your life for good, but there's a loss there, a letting go of, a releasing. So that's one illustration. Or you might, end a sort of a friendship that had been around for a long time. I lost, through an eclipse, I lost a 20-year friendship through no fault of my own. And that really was quite devastating and sad for me. But there is a loss of some female person with regard to a lunar eclipse. Sometimes, this is when it falls on a personal planet. If it doesn't fall on a personal planet, this will probably not be the case. If you have a personal planet, as I did with the sun being there, then there's definitely a sense of loss of some female person because it's a lunar eclipse. Contrastingly, when it's a solar eclipse on a personal planet, an important male person in our life can leave. I'm actually wondering how to explain this without seeming too tragic, but I had the job issues with the lunar eclipse, and with the solar eclipse, I actually had been dating a guy for a few months, and that came to a conclusion as well. So there was a loss of a female person through a friendship, which was associated with the job issues that I had, and there was a loss of a boyfriend as well. So that also occurred with the solar eclipse that happened in the middle of August 11th. And so this is what occurs. I'm a perfect illustration of this point. When we have a lunar eclipse, we can lose someone feminine in our lives. When we have a solar eclipse, we can lose somebody, an important figure from a masculine area of our life. So that is the nature of what can occur with a solar and a lunar eclipse. Now, I should point out that eclipse events can take 6 months to unfold, but there will usually be a big life-shaping occurrence or event like the ones I've just illustrated to you that happened in my life in the month preceding or the month following an eclipse. So for me, the job issues happened a week after the eclipse, but regarding the solar eclipse, it was exactly a month after the solar eclipse that the loss of the dating situation I was in occurred. So that fits within the parameters, at a month before or a month after, and you can see a big occurrence, a big event that's going to be part of the next 6 month cycle of unfolding and up leveling for you as a person. And obviously the stronger the eclipse and the more personal planets involved, the more intense you might find the experience or the event that occurs, such as me with my son involved. Okay. It would be very wise not to hire somebody new at the time of an eclipse, not to sign any contracts, not to begin anything new. Wait a few weeks until the eclipse energy has passed, because it's not a good time for beginning something new when we're in the eclipse energy. It's too intense. It's too intense, and when we begin something, we start it, like if we hire someone new, that period of working with someone will be designated like a chart. We cast a chart, whether we know it or not. We have a chart for the beginning of everything new in our lives. And of course, if we start something new with an eclipse as part of the chart for our new beginning, hiring an employee, getting married, starting a new job, that sort of thing. If we start the chart with an eclipse in it, it's going to be intense and difficult and challenging and all about up-leveling, all about, going through the heavy obstacles to reach the higher vantage point, the higher ground. So it's going to be, in many instances, too challenging, too disruptive, to be quite honest. So that's why we would hold back and wait a couple of weeks until the energy pulls apart, so to speak. Moon and sun move apart, not pull apart. Birthday eclipses that occur, as I said, within 5 days will bring critical years of change, of big change. So for me, who was born very close to the eclipse period by about 3 or 4 days, then it indicates that my solar return chart for this year is going to be all about big change. Again, this is kind of like the point I just illustrated. You start something new with a new chart. I'm starting a new solar year with a chart that has an eclipse energy in it. So it's going to be a big year of change, a big year of up leveling, a big year of challenge, but a big year of growth, and a big year of clearing away which is no longer that which is no longer serving me, and bringing in what will serve me, what will support me, what will uplift and bless me. So it's scary, yes, but exciting too. This is a new energy, a new beginning, and a new chance to lift up in the world, move to another dimension, move to a higher way of being. So speak to me in a year and I'll tell you what happens. I actually recently had a very interesting client who was born with a lunar eclipse right on his ascendant degree. So he's got that in his natal chart all his life. His whole life is going to be about up-leveling, growing, manifesting the new, and big life-changing events. He's going to have a lot of them. His whole bodily journey through life is going to be filled with life-changing, momentous events, which can be fun and exciting and exhilarating. But you have to hang on tight for the roller coaster ride. Now, if you have Leo strong in the chart, you are always going to feel solar eclipses quite strongly because the sun is the ruler of Leo. So every time there's an eclipse, if you have Leo as your ascendant, your sun, and your moon, not all three, if you have Leo as your ascendant or your sun or your moon, you're going to feel eclipses quite strongly every time. It doesn't mean that the big events will unfold, but you'll feel them. You'll notice yourself perhaps feeling a little more agitated, perhaps feeling a little bit off, perhaps feeling a bit frustrated around the time of the eclipse in some way, because the sun will always, your ruling planet will always be involved in the eclipse, naturally enough. And similarly, lunar eclipses, if you have strong Cancer in your chart, Cancer rising or Cancer moon or Cancer sun, you are also going to feel the lunar eclipses very strongly, because the moon is your rising sign, or your dominating planet, or ruling planet, sorry. So we need to keep this in mind. If you're a strong Cancer or a strong Leo person, lots of energy every time there's an eclipse. But the bottom line is eclipses are blessings in disguise. So it's not a negative to have it in your birth chart. It's not a negative to have it in your solar return. Like I said, I hope you enjoy riding roller coasters. I do. So you can actually really get something out of it. It's about, like I've described, clearing away, sweeping away what is no longer useful, in order to allow new and empowering experiences to come into your life. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to sit at the end of the roller coaster and be exhilarated by the experience? The events that are going to come in because of what the eclipse has cleared away will usually be something you never dreamed could be possible. You never dreamed could happen. Even in your wildest imagination, it's completely unexpected and out of the blue, but wonderful. These are the karmic windows that open up for us with an eclipse, and particularly if you've got personal planets involved when we have one. So to illustrate this fact, 2 weeks after my job issues that I've referred to throughout this video, I had a wonderful, mind-blowing job offer come to me through LinkedIn. So exceptional, wonderful, more than I could have ever dreamed or imagined. And this is the nature of the eclipse. So I'm still just waiting to see what comes in regarding the boyfriend thing now that that one's been cleared away. But this is what happens with eclipses. I hope it's given you some insight, some clarity, some understanding, and some hope for what you can look forward to. Maybe there's things that you need to get rid of in your life, and it's like, bring it on, eclipse. Let's get rid of that and let's welcome in something new. And I just, it's my prayer that you will be encouraged by what the eclipses can bring you and the potential that's in them and the opportunity to grow, even though it's through tumultuous circumstances sometimes. So God bless you, and let's look forward to it next year's season of eclipses in Cancer.